What they meant was that he spoke, and I adjusted. Mark liked to be seen as generous, protective, the kind of man who handled things. He paid for dinner loudly, announced favors publicly, corrected me casually in conversations like he was polishing something slightly flawed. "You're too modest," he'd say with a smile when people praised my work. "She'd forget her head if I didn't remind her," he joked once at a dinner party. People laughed. I smiled. It was easier. My younger sister Lily arrived just after 7. She burst into the room already dressed, energy filling the space before she did. Lily had always been like that. Bright, impulsive, expressive, the kind of beauty that demanded attention without asking for it. She hugged me hard, nearly knocking the breath from my lungs. "I barely slept," she said. "I kept thinking about you walking down the aisle." I kissed her cheek. "You're early." "I know. Mom sent me to check on you. She's convinced you're bottling everything up." I almost smiled. Lily perched on the edge of the bed, scrolling through her phone. "Mark texted me at 6. He was asking if I thought you'd like the necklace he got you." "That's new," I said. "He wanted it to be a surprise," she added quickly, glancing at me. "I told him you'd love anything thoughtful." Thoughtful was not the word I would have used for Mark's gifts. They were expensive, visible, and usually chosen last minute. He liked reactions. He preferred gratitude he could witness. By 9, the suite was full. Stylists moved around me like planets with their own gravity. Brushes swept, pins clicked into place, fabric rustled. The photographer snapped shots. I pretended not to notice. Someone popped champagne. I declined. Someone insisted. I took a sip and set it down untouched. Mark didn't come to see me, tradition, he'd said, but he sent updates through others. "He looks amazing. He's pacing. Ha, ha, ha." He keeps asking if everything's on schedule. At 11:30, my mother adjusted my veil for the 3rd time and sighed. "You've always been so composed," she said, "even as a child. I hope you know it's okay to feel things today." "I do feel things," I said gently. "I just don't broadcast them." She patted my hands like she wasn't convinced. The ceremony space was a restored stone hall with high ceilings and long windows that let the gray daylight spill in softly. Rows of white chairs, pale flowers, everything understated.
Intentional?
As the music began, the doors opened. I stepped forward. The walk down the aisle felt shorter than I expected. Faces blurred into a single awareness. People watching, waiting for something emotional to unfold. Mark stood at the front, tall and assured, hands clasped loosely in front of him. He smiled when he saw me. Not warmly, proudly, like he was admiring a finished project.
Reached the altar. The officiant welcomed everyone.
Words flowed. Vows approached. Then Mark turned to me. He leaned in slightly, his smile fixed, and whispered, "Relax your shoulders. You look stiff." I adjusted without comment. The officiant prompted him to begin his vows. Mark cleared his throat. "I've always believed honesty is the foundation of any good marriage." A ripple of approving murmurs moved through the crowd.
"I won't pretend we're perfect," he continued. "We've had our challenges."
He glanced at me, then away, like he was choosing his words carefully. "But today is about truth." I felt something shift, not fear, awareness. He turned fully toward me, raised his hand. The sound was sharp, final. For half a second, no one processed what they'd seen. Then the air changed. My head turned slightly with the impact. Not hard enough to knock me off balance, hard enough to be unmistakable. My cheek burned. The room inhaled as one out. Mark laughed softly, like he'd told a joke that landed awkwardly. "See?" he said to the crowd. "She barely reacts. That's what I love about her. So controlled." Gasps, whispers. Someone stood halfway out of their seat. Before anyone could move, Mark stepped back and turned. Not to the officiant.
You're good with money." To Lily. She was seated in the front row, hands frozen in her lap, eyes wide.
"Lily," he said, voice carrying, "you've always understood me better. You challenge me. You're passionate. I think I made a mistake." He reached into his pocket and dropped to one knee. "I should have been honest sooner. Will you marry me?" The hall erupted. Not with cheers, but with chaos. Shouts layered over each other. My mother stood calling my name, someone cursed. The officiant backed away as if the space itself had become unsafe. Lily didn't move. I did. I stepped back into place, lifted my chin, and faced the room. The burning in my cheeks settled into something dull and manageable.
I didn't scream. I didn't cry.
I didn't reach for anyone. I looked at Mark, then at Lily, then at the faces around us. Confusion, outrage, curiosity. And I said nothing. I took one step back, then another. I turned, lifted my dress carefully, and walked back down the aisle alone. Behind me, the noise followed. I didn't look back. I left the hall through the side exit, the one reserved for staff and caterers. The stone corridor was narrow and cool. My heels clicked, softly, evenly. Someone called my name once. I didn't stop. Outside, the rain had decided to commit. It fell straight and steady, no wind. I stood under the overhang and let the noise of it fill the space where shock was supposed to live. A valet approached, hesitant. "Ma'am, your car?" "Thank you," I said.
I'll walk.
He nodded, relieved to be dismissed. I crossed the courtyard slowly, my dress gathering rain at the hem. At the gate, I took off my shoes and carried them. The cold stone grounded me. By the time I reached the sidewalk, my breathing was level. I didn't go home. Home had become theoretical. Instead, I went to the office. It was Saturday, but my access badge still worked. The lobby lights were dimmed, the security desk empty except for the night guard, who glanced up and then looked away. I rode the elevator alone to the 10th floor and unlocked my door. The office smelled like paper and citrus cleaner. Familiar, neutral. I set my shoes under my desk, hung the dress carefully in the coat closet, and washed my hands in the break room sink until the water ran clear and my pulse slowed. Then I sat down and opened my laptop. I didn't search Mark's name. I didn't need to. I opened the folder I'd started months earlier and renamed it Personal. I hadn't planned for a public scene like that, but I had planned for instability. Mark had never hit me before. He didn't need to. He preferred pressure, small, constant adjustments that left no single bruise. He corrected my tone in meetings. Rewrote emails I'd already sent. Moved my belongings without asking and then acted surprised when I noticed. "I'm just optimizing," he'd say. When we got engaged, he suggested we merge finances for transparency. I declined, calmly. He laughed it off, then asked again 2 weeks later with a spreadsheet and a speech about trust. I still declined. After that, I started saving things, not emotionally, administratively. I saved emails where he spoke to vendors without copying me, then blamed me for miscommunication. Screenshots of messages where he framed my decisions as mutual after overriding them. Notes from conversations that left me confused until I replayed them later. At the time, I didn't know what I was preparing for. I just knew better than to rely on memory alone. By the time my phone started buzzing again, I had already backed up the folder to a private drive. The first call was my mother. I let it ring. The second was Lily. I answered that one. "Where are you?" she asked. Her voice was tight, high. "I'm safe," I said. He just left," she said. "Mark, he said he needed air." I didn't say anything. I swear.
I didn't. I know. I said. You don't have to explain.
There was a pause. "Are you angry?" "No." "Not a lie. Not the truth either." "I just don't understand," she whispered. "This doesn't make sense." "It will," I said. "Eventually." After we hung up, I sent one message to Mark. "We are done. Do not contact me again." I blocked his number immediately after. Email followed. Social platforms. Anything with a direct line? I didn't block his business accounts. That was intentional. The fallout was loud, but distant. By Sunday morning, my phone was full of missed calls and messages from extended family, friends, people I hadn't spoken to in years. Opinions arrived uninvited. Advice. Outrage on my behalf. Requests for statements. I didn't respond. On Monday, I went to work as usual. I wore a gray suit, low heels, hair pulled back. When colleagues asked if I was okay, I said yes and changed the subject. When HR offered time off, I declined politely. Routine matters when everything else becomes unstable. Mark emailed me that afternoon from his work address. We need to talk like adults. What happened was taken out of context. I didn't reply. 2 days later, another email. I never meant to hurt you. You know that. I was trying to be honest. Still nothing. By the end of the week, his tone shifted. You're embarrassing yourself by disappearing. People are asking questions. That one I archived. The first tangible consequence came quietly. A florist I recognized forwarded me an invoice in case I needed it. Mark had attempted to cancel and redirect the payment to a different account, claiming mutual authorization. The florist hesitated because the contract listed me as the sole signatory. I thanked her. Saved the email. Then the venue coordinator reached out, asking if I'd approved a refund request Mark had submitted that morning. He hadn't known I'd paid in full months earlier from my account, with my card. No, I replied. I have not approved that, she apologized. Saved. A pattern emerged. Mark was trying to retrieve assets he didn't own. By Friday, I had 3 similar messages from vendors. By the following Tuesday, 5. I created a timeline, dates, times, attempts, language used. Then I did something Mark never expected. I met with a lawyer. Not for revenge, for clarity. I brought the folder printed, indexed, neutral. She reviewed everything without comment, occasionally marking pages with small flags. You were thorough, she said finally. I prefer accuracy. She nodded. He's attempting to access funds and contracts he's not legally entitled to. Sloppily. He always assumed I'd clean up after him, I said. She looked at me carefully. What do you want to happen? I want to protect myself, I said. And my sister. That got her attention? What do you mean? I slid one more document across the table. A copy of a lease agreement. Not mine. Your Lily's. I'd requested it the night after the wedding from the property manager under the pretense of returning a lost package. The signature block listed Mark as a cohabiting partner added 2 months earlier. I hadn't known they were that involved. The lawyer exhaled slowly. Does your sister know? Not yet. She should. I will tell her, I said, when I have proof she can't talk herself out of. The lawyer didn't argue. That evening, I received the message that changed everything. It came from an address I didn't recognize. No greeting, just an attachment and 1 line of text. Thought you should see this, he's been bragging. What? I stood, retrieved the copy from my folder, and placed it on the table between us. Open to the signature page. She stared at it. I didn't sign that. No, I said. He did. Her face drained slowly. Not shock. Recognition. I asked him to move in later, she said quietly, after things settled. He doesn't wait for permission, I said. He reframes it as inevitability. She pressed her fingers to her temple. Why didn't you tell me sooner? Because you wouldn't have believed me, I said. Not without this. She didn't argue. We sat in silence until she whispered, Is there more? Yes. I didn't show her everything. Not yet, I told her. Enough! She left an hour later, shaken but composed. Before she went, she turned back. He wants to make a statement, she said. Together, he says. It'll put everything to rest. When? Next Saturday, at his firm's charity gala. I nodded. Thank you for telling me. You're not going to stop him, she said. It wasn't a question. No. After she left, I made 2 phone calls. The first was to my lawyer. The second was to the event coordinator listed on the gala invitation Mark had once proudly shown me. The gala was annual. Black tie, donors, media. A short program with a keynote, followed by acknowledgments. Mark was slated to speak 5 minutes, unscripted, a personal reflection on integrity in leadership. I asked the coordinator a simple question. Is there an open segment for donor recognition? Yes, she said. At the end, I'd like to contribute, I said, anonymously. There was a pause. Then, of course. Over the next week, Mark grew bolder. He emailed mutual contacts, framing the situation as a mutual separation complicated by family dynamics. He told colleagues I'd checked out emotionally months before the wedding. He implied concern for my stability without stating it outright. I saved everything. Meanwhile, I worked quietly. I compiled the group chat screenshots with metadata intact, cross-referenced dates with vendor contracts and payment timelines, pulled bank statements showing my sole contributions, printed the lease agreement with the forged authorization, included Mark's refund attempts. I didn't edit for drama. I organized for clarity. 2 days before the gala, Mark sent one last email to my work address. "If you show up, you'll only embarrass yourself." I didn't reply. On the night of the event, I arrived early. I wore a simple black dress, no jewelry except my watch. Hair pulled back, I checked in under my own name and took a seat near the back. The room filled with familiar faces, executives, board members, journalists. Mark moved through them easily, laughing, shaking hands, the image of confidence restored. Lily arrived alone. She caught my eye across the room, hesitated, then took the seat beside me. "I told him I needed space," she said quietly. "That was wise," I replied. The program began. Speeches blurred together until Mark took the stage. He thanked donors, spoke about resilience, about learning from mistakes. He never mentioned my name. He didn't need to. The implication hung neatly between his sentences. Applause followed. Then the coordinator returned to the microphone, and finally, she said, "We have a special donor who requested a brief acknowledgement." She looked toward me. I stood. The room shifted. I walked to the stage without hurry, took the microphone from her, adjusted it once. I looked out at the audience, at Mark. He smiled thinly, confident, unconcerned. I placed a folder on the podium. "Good evening," I said. "My name is... And that was when Mark's expression changed. Because he finally understood, and there was nothing he could do to stop what came next. "Good evening," I said. "My name is Emma." The room was silent in the way only public spaces get when something unscripted happens. Not awkward. Alert. "I won't take long," I continued. "I was invited here as a donor because I believe in transparency, especially when it's inconvenient." I opened the folder. I was engaged to Mark until 2 weeks ago. Our wedding was scheduled for Saturday, March 9th at 12 noon. Many of you were invited. A few heads turned. Mark's shoulders stiffened. He didn't interrupt, not yet. On that day, I said, Mark struck me in front of witnesses and proposed to my sister during the ceremony. A murmur moved through the room. This time, I didn't look at him. I didn't need to. I didn't respond publicly then. I chose to wait. To document. I lifted the first page. These are emails sent by Mark to vendors between February 14th and March 11th, attempting to cancel or redirect contracts he was not legally authorized to modify. I paused. Each vendor declined because the contracts were signed and paid for by me alone. I turned a page. This is a lease agreement dated January 6th, listing Mark as a cohabiting partner in my sister's apartment. The authorization was submitted without her knowledge. Lily inhaled sharply beside me. She didn't stand. She stayed seated, watching. I turned another page. These are bank statements showing the timeline of payments Mark referenced in private messages as clearing before he planned to leave. That got attention. I held up the final document. "And this," I said steady, "is a screenshot of a group chat dated 6 months ago. In it, Mark describes maintaining our engagement until after the wedding for financial and professional convenience." I didn't read the message aloud. I didn't have to. The screen behind me lit up as the coordinator, silent, efficient, projected the image I had sent earlier that day. The room leaned forward. No shouting, no gasps. This time. Just the sound of people reading. Mark stepped toward the stage. "This is inappropriate," he said. "This is private." I raised a hand. Not sharply. Just enough. "I'm almost finished." He stopped. "I'm not here to ask for sympathy," I said, "or to assign blame beyond what the documents already show. I'm here because narratives thrive in silence, and silence should be a choice, not a trap." I closed the folder. "I've submitted copies of these materials to the appropriate parties. Legal counsel has been retained. Any further questions can be directed there." I nodded once to the coordinator and stepped away from the microphone. No applause followed. That was fine. As I walked back to my seat, conversations began. Quiet, urgent, irreversible. Phones came out. People whispered names and dates. Mark didn't follow me. He stood frozen near the stage, eyes darting, calculating exits that no longer existed. Lily reached for my hand. I let her. "I'm sorry," she said, barely audible. "I know," I replied. By the next morning, Mark's firm had issued a statement distancing itself from personal conduct inconsistent with company values. His speaking engagements disappeared from the website by noon. The refund requests he'd made were flagged as potential fraud. Now called me for comment. That was deliberate. 2 weeks later, Lily moved out. She stayed with a friend while she restructured her lease. Properly this time. We spoke often, carefully, without rushing forgiveness. I withdrew my donations quietly. I changed my number. Life settled, not into something smaller, but into something precise. I learned that restraint isn't weakness, that waiting isn't surrender. That truth, when timed correctly, doesn't need volume. It just needs light. And I no longer confuse silence with compliance. I choose when to speak now, and that has made all the difference. The attachment was a screenshot of a group chat. Mark's name was at the top. The messages were dated 6 months back. Plans, jokes, references to playing it safe until after the wedding. Comments about my predictability. A message that read, "Once the contract's clear, I'm out. Lily's worth the wait." Below it, a photo. "A ring, not the one he gave me." I stared at the screen for a long time. Then I saved it, backed it up, and finally, for the first time since the ceremony, I allowed myself a single, steady breath, because now I had the receipt that mattered. And I knew exactly where it would be read aloud. Mark resurfaced publicly 2 weeks later. Not with an apology, with a narrative. He posted a photo on his business account, him and Lily at a cafe, sunlight catching the table just right. The caption was, "Careful, almost tasteful. Life doesn't always follow the plan you think it should. But honesty matters." Comments poured in, supportive, curious, some critical, most cautious. Lily wasn't tagged, but people recognized her. They always had. I didn't react online. Instead, I printed the post and added it to the file. That same afternoon, Lily came to see me. She stood in my doorway like a guest waiting to be invited in. No makeup, hands clasped. The energy that usually radiated from her was muted. "I didn't know how else to do this," she said. "Come in," I replied. She sat across from me, eyes scanning the apartment like it had changed. Maybe it had. I'd removed every trace of the wedding in one evening. Clean surfaces, clear lines. "He says you won't talk to him," she said. "That's correct. He says you're punishing him." I nodded once. That's his interpretation. She hesitated. "He says you were never really happy." I didn't answer immediately. Then, "Did he tell you when your lease was updated?" Her head snapped up. "On my wedding day, the groom slapped me and proposed to my sister." My reaction shocked everyone. I had always been told I was easy to overlook. Not invisible, just quiet. The kind of woman people assumed would adapt, accommodate, smooth things over. I learned early that silence made other people comfortable, and competence made me useful. So I carried both like tools. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't rush decisions. I watched. On the morning of my wedding, I woke before my alarm. 5:12 a.m., the hotel room was still dark, the city outside muted by rain that hadn't made up its mind. I lay there listening to the hum of the air conditioner and the faint click of pipes in the walls, mentally reviewing the schedule I'd finalized weeks ago. Hair at 7. Makeup at 8. Photographer at 9. Ceremony at noon. Everything accounted for. I slid out of bed quietly and crossed to the window. 30 floors down, traffic moved in clean lines. Predictable. Orderly. I liked that. People assumed brides were nervous. Emotional. Fragile. I wasn't. I'd planned this day the way I planned everything else, methodically, with contingencies. I knew who would arrive late, who would complain about seating, which relatives would drink too much. I'd already assigned 2 of my cousins to quietly intercept my uncle if he got loud. Control didn't mean force. It meant preparation. By 6, my phone began to buzz. Messages stacked in neat rows. Can't believe today is finally here. You're going to be stunning. Where do you want the flowers delivered? And then, as always, a message from Mark. Morning. Try not to stress yourself out today. No emoji, no punctuation beyond the period. A reminder, not a wish, I replied with a thumbs up and set the phone face down. Mark and I had been together 4 years, engaged for 1. To most people, we looked balanced, him confident and decisive, me calm and organized. They said we complemented each other.